So to the questions, our first one, Jesus makes it clear when speaking to the Pharisees, haven't you read, that we can read and understand Scripture. Why then do we have such a hard time understanding Revelation?
Talking about the revelation of John, not revelation in general.
It doesn't give me a definite article here, so we just have understanding Revelation. It doesn't say revelations, so that's a good sign. And not everyone needs to answer at once.
Which one are we answering? The book or?
Yes.
I took it as
General and special?
as special revelation in Scripture.
So you think that's what they're talking about?
No, you think
You
it's
don't think they're
I think they're talking about
survey says?
the apocalypse.
Is it the apocalypse? Everybody wants to hear about the end times.
This has now turned into a Ligonier End Times prophecy conference.
I guess they want to know why we have a hard time understanding it. Yeah. Well, who's having a hard time understanding it? And who do you mean by we? I don't find it that difficult. Yeah, I would suppose we could say that because there's so many images, symbols, metaphors, it's always difficult when you're trying to interpret apocalyptic language that you can tend to over-interpret. You can tend to, kind of give it more meaning than you possibly should because you're trying to contextualize it rather than seeking to understand it within its own proper context. I think Revelation, if understood and sought to be understood in its own proper context, and as a book like all the other books of the Bible addressed to a certain people in a certain time, in a certain context, you might find it an easier interpretation than you probably first initially thought. But that's what I would think. I mean, you have to ask Pastor.
Yeah, I agree. I think part of the problem with Revelation in particular is we've been taught so many different things. We've heard so many different things about what Revelation must mean and what this point must mean. And as you pointed out, people trying to make every symbol mean something directly. And so people, I think, are very confused when it comes to the book of Revelation. And they don't really have a proper grid or framework for understanding it. And it really is our problem as Christians in general and our lack of having a good hermeneutic or a good method of interpretation. That's where the church has really failed, and we as pastors have failed in many ways. We've not taught our people hermeneutics. And you really can't study the Bible and you can't really study theology properly, of course, unless you have good hermeneutics. And that's, I think, part of the underlying problem, is that we have failed to teach a consistent hermeneutic that can be applied to Revelation. Incidentally, Bob Godfrey, you mentioned Dr. Godfrey, our dear friend, he is going to be planning to record a series with Ligonier Ministries on the book of Revelation to help this very point, to help give a very simple, historic, reformed view on the book of Revelation. So that'll be coming up soon, right?
Week and a half,
Okay.
we record.